What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to me continuing sort of my build series, sort of what happened in order. And when we get to the end of this build series, hopefully by then I would have found a nice place to shoot my tour. There's been a lot going on these past few weeks, and hopefully things are starting to even out and balance out and get right with the world again. But I had a rough past couple of weeks, but I've been trying to keep up with my video schedule despite it. But for anybody new around here, hopefully new people are showing up. My name is Dawn, and I live in this box truck, and I lived in it while I was building it out. Now, last video I did in the build diary, I did go back in time a little bit to before I installed these walls right here, and talked about the beginning of my kitchen, which was the stove and the sink. The next element that really played into the kitchen was this countertop right here. This countertop that's underneath this cabinet that needs to be closed. By the way, baby latches are like the best thing ever for keeping your, when you remember to latch them, for keeping your cabinets closed while you're riding down the road. Baby latches. Go to the baby section, and if you don't have fancy schmancy latches, just get some baby latches and they really work great. But getting back to that, it was a while before I got this cabinet. For a long time this space was open and this cabinet was not here. But the first thing I added after the sink and the stove, as far as like really defining the kitchen space once the walls were in here, because reminder, I had to pull out the sink and the stove in order to insulate and install the walls. I think I only had the sink at I'm confused about my own timeline. That's why I went back to talk about the sink and the stove. But I did have to pull them out in order to actually do the wall install. I did do that video. That video has my friend Ashley in it, who helped me do the internal walls. It was actually a while before I rolled back and then did the back wall, which will be its own other video. Okay, I'm rambling at this point to say, what is this countertop? Did I cut it? Did I paint it? Did I stain it? I did none of those things. I bought this and installed it. So, I like the idea of being creative with what you can find, especially when you don't exactly have carpentry skills. I was pretty set on the idea of a floating shelf as sort of a stand-in for a countertop. And I found this Cosway 40 by 14 wall-mounted dining table thing online and decided to give that a shot as sort of the stand-in for countertop space. I didn't originally have the drawer in the plan. I originally bought this drawer for basically a storage plan that didn't work out. Again, trying to work with things that already exist and fit them into the plan, as it were. And when it didn't work out, I just kind of had it sitting around in my way. But as soon as I unboxed the shelf, or the table, or whatever you want to call it, I was like, hey, maybe I could combine these two things. So one of the first things I had to do was drill holes that bolts could go through so that the drawer sides could attach to the side of the bracket that came with the shelf. Once the drawer was attached to the bracket, it was a time to attach the tabletop to the top part of the bracket. Using some boxes to hold it at height, at that point I began to attach the bracket to the wall. After that, I slid the drawer back in, and that was all she wrote. Yes, that is a baby latch. Baby latches. You can find them at Walmart, Home Depot, Target, all those kinds of places in all kinds of styles, usually only in the colors of black or white, but they are a lifesaver for keeping things closed on your cabinets on the road. So with that, the first version of the extension onto my kitchen was in place. In addition to using it for food prep, I also used it as a desk area at first because I didn't have anything else set up. I was still sleeping on the floor at the time. But let's fast forward to these days. So I bought this little measuring keychain when I was in the middle of this build process, and one of the reasons I liked it is I would take measurements of a space, I would write it down on a piece of paper, and then I would go in the store and I'd be like, okay, or I would look at measurements on a box and I'd be like, all right, it needs to be like, I can't have it be any more than like 14, and I need it to be no longer than, so I really did find this super valuable while I was looking for existing items to fit into my space, because that's the problem. When you buy it out the box and you're looking not to alter it, sometimes you have to adjust the space around it instead of adjusting it around the space. And that was one of the advantages of having a box truck. It was square. And it was tall enough that most household items could be slid right in and kind of like mishmash together and make it work. Which I also did in my minivan. For my minivan, I bought some cabinets from Target and made them work. And I just measured the space, and I went online and I searched and I looked at measurements, and I went in the store with my measuring tape and measured things and tried to figure out how much space they were going to take up, if they could work, or if I could manipulate them in a way that at least gave me my goal, even if it wasn't the ideal drawing I'd spec'd out in my head. And yeah, that's basically a lot of what it was. So as I said, baby latches are awesome, and that's what I have on the side of this drawer to keep it closed, especially when I'm driving. It really sucks when I forget, because this will just slide out and things will start popping out, but this is mostly the Mickey drawer. This is his dry food, this is wet food, this is what's still left in the bag from his dry food. He has toys in here, he has treats in here, because I'm fiddling with his drawer. He's probably going to show up. Yep, here he is. He was like, why are you in my drawer? You already ate, buddy. Which is really convenient because I can just open this up, I can pull out the scoop, and then if you look right on the floor, when I close this, right down there on the floor is usually, sorry Mickey, where Mickey eats. So this is right above where he eats every day anyway now. And right here in the corner here is his new water fountain. He had a different water fountain before, but I like that this one is clear and I can kind of see the quality of water. After I did my little shorts video where I had my own little water filter, somebody was like, Mickey's going to want filtered water. Mickey already has a filtered water fountain, and it does run by USB, and I do have it bungee corded down, but I do try to remember to turn it off before I start driving because this water will splash. And then over here is just something that's ended up holding a lot of office supplies. Originally I bought this for utensils, but it didn't really work out and I ended up transitioning to office supplies. And for this as well, I have a little bungee cord, and I bungee cord it down before I start driving. Sometimes I forget and then it'll just slide, but there's nothing really fragile in there. And then I have my little clip right here, which I can use as a cup holder. So that's basically why that exists. Let's get some sparkling water that I've been drinking. Goes right in there like that. So one of the other things I really wanted for the box truck from the beginning was shelving for Mickey to be able to get around the whole box truck, and we do have that now. He can get around the top of the box truck without ever touching the ground. He can also go from up to down. I wanted him to have those levels. Even when we were in the Chevy van, I like the idea of him having levels. One of the reasons I had a cabinet that did not go all the way to the ceiling of the van was because I wanted Mickey to have that space to climb high and be high up there. And now I've gotten to a space in here where he doesn't have one but many spaces where he can be high in the air. And I like that he has that. I always wanted cat shelves running around the top of the box truck. And the first two I installed were these two behind me. Not this guy right here, that's a whole other story. But the beginning of the cat superhighway around the truck was these two shelves, this one and its twin brother. And I got these from Target. And after installing them, the problem was basically out of the box, you just had wood shelving and some metal baskets. And obviously when I drive, the problem was these metal baskets were going to slide out. So what I ended up doing is just adding a couple of eyelets on each side and then using bungee cords to secure things. I'm a big fan of just securing things with bungee cords. If something's going to slide, I either use baby latches or bungee cords, and that usually just allows me to be able to drive without things sort of falling out. I was impressed when I installed these that he could get from this one to this one without this middle shelf. I still added this middle shelf. That's again a whole other story, because there was something different here and then I changed it to this. But he could jump from here to here and never touch this if he really wanted to. If this was in here, he'd be fine. And so he was actually able to jump from the top of my 12-volt fridge to the top of this shelf. So almost as soon as these got installed, like, Mickey got another level to play on. And for me, his happiness is a part of this box truck transition as much as mine. So these are just some of the small things that started to make the box really a home for me and Mickey. When I first installed that shelf over there with the drawer, I used it a lot for a desk because eventually I wanted the flip-up table behind me to be sort of my desk area, but I hadn't installed that yet. So that was the first like surface I had to work on, and it was the first time I really felt like at home in the box truck and really like I was moving towards the stuff that made it a house. Like once the walls went up and I could really think about like what was going to be in here that I was actually using. Yes, I'm kind of using the insulation because it's always there, and I'm glad for the first time to have like an insulated vehicle home. None of my previous vehicle homes were insulated, at least not by me. So to finally have that feels good, and I know like I did the best I could to, you know, take care of that stuff that needed to come in before furniture. And I remember when I first got it, people were very focused on like furniture and cabinets and decor, and I was like, I got a lot to do before I could start moving that stuff in. And I absolutely refused to buy anything that was going to be in my way. That's why I slept on the floor at first. That's why I did not worry about like having a dresser or some sort of fancy closet set up, because I knew I needed to get the basics in first, which was the insulation, the walls, the ceiling, stuff like that. The funny thing was the ceiling came after me starting to put some of the homey touches on here. And the first two I put in here were just, it was really nice to have them, to see the beginning of the cat superhighway. And when I look at it now, it's interesting to think like the cat superhighway words began with just two little shelves, and then I just sort of mismatched and figured it out from there, so that we have that shelf and the middle shelf and the rest of the track, so he can track around the top, the bottom, and he can even move in the middle if he wants. And that makes me so happy for him and for me. Thank you for joining me for another video. For those of you who've been around for a while, you know this is where I remind you about the algorithm. The algorithm is this thing that YouTube uses to like judge your importance. And I'm not that important, but you can help me not fall into obscurity by hitting that like button, leaving a comment, watching videos till the end, watching the occasional ad here and there. But really, it's all up to you. Only reason I'm here is to provide some kind of entertainment, and if you don't feel I did that, well, that's totally cool. So before I say my final goodbye, thank you especially to all those people who throw in that extra support on Patreon and YouTube memberships. And there's some people I've neglected to thank, which are all the people who volunteered to be moderators for live chats and things like that. Like, it's really hard sometimes managing yourself alone, and all of you guys help make it a little bit easier. And I'll see you in the next video.